take 45 minutes driving it into the.
Yeah, to get in
And get right in.
and get better care.
Yes.
I mean,
It's
Crazy.
I took one bit of caps last
Working
year.
on it.
Thank you. And then the
Yeah.
date for
Yeah.
the meeting in January, that was okay?
Right in, right out.
right?
January.
No, it is. They have a whole different
Oh,
perspective up
live,
there
so
about
every-
people.
you're
I think
ready
it'll
to
be
you know,
yourself.
Yeah, I have 358,
Just-
so we
Look
are
at
live.
99%.
There's a certain one
Yeah,
there.
they just, you know, treat better people better there, you know.
Hey, Richard, give me 1 second, because we're gonna update this TV and we will see if we can hear you.
Leaving Australia on the 6th, but see how he goes.
Got me waiting for that.
We can get started with that. I think everybody has an agenda. There are agendas back there if you all need it. When the TV gets officially updated, we will add it there as well.
All right, well, with that in consideration, it's 4 o'clock, so we'll call this work session of Mayor and Council to order. Mr. O'Brien will have the roll call, please.
Mayor Logsdon.
Present.
Commissioner Carter mentioned he would be a little bit late. Commissioner Forsyth.
Here,
Commissioner Grove.
Here.
Commissioner Ritchie.
Here.
All right. We will go on then to a special presentation. This is item 3 on the agenda. This is our regular update from Rich Reinhardt, our consultant with Percy Public Affairs who represents us in Annapolis.
Rich, can you hear us? Oh, there we go. TV, give us 2 seconds.
Sure.
We're gonna get you on this TV as soon as it restarts. It decided to update about an hour before the meeting and it took up the whole hour.
No sweat.
Or maybe it just died. Give it a second.
Okay, no worries.
It's the first time TVs are updated, so.
Technology, gotta love it.
getting there. There he is.
There we are.
Can you hear us?
Loud and clear.
Perfect.
And
All
we can
right.
hear you. Outstanding.
It's all you, Rich. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I appreciate this this late afternoon update. Very sim.
No. That wasn't supposed to happen. Hold on, Rich.
Work session's canceled.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna watch one of these
All right,
movies.
you're back. I'm
Just
not
leave
sure why the TV gave up on you.
Okay. No worries.
Give me a freaking break. All right, you figure that out. Can we maybe do one of these others while we wait on him? Or what we...
Or we can just do like.
All right,
the-
sorry, you made us accept the terms and agreement. Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you.
That should be all of it.
Okay. 3 times the charm, right? All right, well, what I was saying, good evening to everybody. Thanks for your time tonight. As I said a moment ago, this is sort of a perfect timing for us to be updating you all from Annapolis. And I'm glad we're here in Annapolis because the last week has been obviously a lot going on in terms of transition and updates. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But let me first start off that literally moments ago, the governor made an announcement and he signed an executive order calling for a special session of the Maryland General Assembly. This executive order was signed literally moments ago. He's calling for the General Assembly to be coming back to Annapolis next Tuesday, December the 16th. The House of Delegates called for a special session to elect the new Speaker of the House following Speaker Adrienne Jones announcing last week that she was resigning and stepping down from her leadership role as Speaker. In addition to the reasons for the special session to elect the new Speaker, and I'll talk a little about that in a second, the executive order and the press release by the governor also said that the General Assembly may also consider other business to be resolved prior to the beginning of the legislative session. That's a very expansive wording that leaves a lot of opening for potential discussion and debates on other topics, such as the veto overrides that the legislature would have to do by our state constitution. There's a lot of speculation on if there's going to be overrides, which of those bills are on that list to be overridden. Are they cherry picking a few, or are they looking at basically doing the wide swath and having all of those bills that were vetoed overridden? That's still subject for additional information as a need-to-know basis, or if we can get information as the week progresses. But essentially, that's one of the topics that may come up in addition to the election of the Speaker. We also know, and we've all been reading in the paper, the governor established a redistricting commission for our current Maryland congressional maps. This has been a national discussion. We've seen what has happened in California, Texas, Utah, Virginia recently, and we are now looking at it here in Maryland. I would not be surprised, based off of the redistricting commission wrapping up their public input meetings this past week. There may be one more for some in-person feedback. I would not be surprised if, in addition to the election of the Speaker and potentially the overrides that could be taking place, that there is not a discussion and debate on the topic of redistricting the congressional current maps for Maryland. There's a lot that's going to be jammed into the next week or so, and given the fact that we are on a very tight window right before the holidays, Christmas, I would deduce that we are only going to be in a special session for a limited period of time. That limitation could be basically somewhere between Tuesday the 16th and it could ride out to the end of next Friday. I just don't see how the legislature will continue to stay in for a long period of time and even on the doorsteps of the holidays. So we will keep you apprised on those updates as they come in. But literally, this news just broke right before we decided to have the presentation. So perfect timing, if you will, on that. If you have any questions, I'm going to open that up in a second. But I do want to close down some of the other news that are part of this special session, which is the announcement of a new leader in the House. As I mentioned a moment ago, Adrienne Jones, the Speaker, who has been in that position for the last 6 years, she's stepping down from that role. She's still going to maintain her status as a delegate, but there will be a new leadership in place. Over the last week, we've seen a few prominent members currently holding leadership roles in the committees in the House being considered. The chairman of the Appropriations Committee, the chairman of the Economic Matters Committee, the chairwoman of the Legislative Black Caucus, and the chair of the HGO Committee, the Health and Government Operations Committee. All 4 of those members were announcing that they wanted to be the successor. And as of Sunday evening, news broke late Sunday evening that the frontrunner, Chairwoman Keena Melnick, who is from part Prince George's County and part Anne Arundel County, she is kind of taking the lead, has received the crowning endorsements by the other candidates that were also vying for the role. I really don't see anything changing between now and next week, but subject to change. Annapolis changes at a moment. So we're going to see what happens. But for right now, as of Tuesday, December the 9th, it looks like we're going to have a new speaker, a new female minority speaker in Keena Melnick. I can say I've had a great time working with the chairwoman in her current post. She's unabashedly a progressive liberal Democrat, but she's also very fair and she's very pragmatic, which is something that I think we could all use in Annapolis. She can be terse and she can be strong in her positions, but she also makes sure that everyone has a chance to present their side or their position, and she takes that all into consideration. So I think for a new leader to have those type of qualities is a good thing, and I think there's a lot of people in Annapolis really excited that she was the one that looks to be the next speaker in the House. So again, those are some updates in real time. Hopefully we'll have some stability after Christmas on what's going on before we get into the 2026 session. But do you have any questions for me related to the announcement about the special session? Anything related to our state constitution on what to expect during the special session? Anything related to redistricting or the recent announcements about the speaker announcements?
I have a question about the redistricting commission. So my understanding is there's one more meeting on Friday where they are taking public comment. Is that the final meeting and the commission will vote to either approve or not approve or take it, whatever is that? Or will they have to have another meeting on Monday next week, or will they be ready by the session?
So, Mayor Todd, that's a great question. Initially, on the organizational meeting that took place about a month ago, the chair said that there was going to be about 5 public input meetings, and some of those were going to be virtual and then potentially in-person meetings. At this point in time, they've covered, as of last Friday, they've covered, I think, 4 meetings virtually. So this next meeting could be the 5th and final meeting. I don't know if it's going to be in person. So if they are going to be true to the initial announcements during their first org meeting, this would complete the final meeting so that the commission then take the next steps on recommendations, and we can go into December 16th next week with a potential debate on the subject.
Okay. But there's no timeline to say that on Friday they're going to, the commission will make a recommendation. I mean, they could, obviously, but.
They could, but there's no indication or any hint of information that's out there publicly or unofficially saying that there could be a report or a decision by Friday on what the commission will do following the last meeting.
Got it, okay.
I would, again, I'm kind of deducing based off of the new news that we just heard, that if we are going to be here in Annapolis next Tuesday, and the commission's going to be wrapping up their duties as of potentially this Friday, that doesn't give a lot of time for the commission to do a turnaround, but stranger things have happened, and we've seen sort of the aggressiveness of this topic really start out with maybe just some conjecture and sort of low-key comments back in the late summer, early fall, and now we've seen it sort of metastasize, and I feel like at this point, anything's up for grabs in terms of timeline and what could be discussed next week. Again, based off my spidey senses and what I'm seeing and hearing, I would believe that if we're going to be electing a new Speaker of the House and we have the majority of the body of the House already there, there's a potential or propensity that we could see other issues such as the overrides take place, and also, bringing up the redistricting. So I'm not ruling out any of those two other topics for next Tuesday and potentially the remainder of the week. Any other questions regarding the special session or the speaker? If not, I will pivot back to why we were originally here, which was to talk about sort of the forecast for next session. Okay. I think all of you may have this in hand. I sent this over to Patrick earlier in the week. I think maybe even on Monday. It was probably yesterday, Patrick. Does the group have the PowerPoint in hand, or can you at least see the screen?
We can see
Yeah,
the
we
screen.
can see the screen, yeah.
Okay, great. So I want to just touch on some of the things on what we are going to be experiencing besides the turnover in the House in terms of leadership and maybe the makeup of those standing committee leaders. I mean, that in itself could be unraveled in a few weeks, and trying to adjust to that is going to be somewhat tumultuous. But we also are seeing there's going to be other huge lifts that the General Assembly are going to have to tackle this year. And some of those topics are not things that are unfamiliar with the General Assembly, and certainly in my prior briefings to all of you, these are topics that seem to be a Groundhog Day retread. Obviously, the budget's going to take up a lot of the time in Annapolis, given our financial circumstances. But I know the issues of public safety, infrastructure, homelessness, housing, and certainly the other bigger topic of energy literally will consume us for 90 days. So I'm going to jump into some of those topics. But before I do, I'm just going to kind of give you a forecast of what we're going to present today. I want to give you all a high-level overview of what came out of the Spending Affordability Committee report from a few weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving. Kind of gives you a snapshot of some of the fiscal deficits that we're facing, not only next year, but in out years, why we are in the situation we are in, and what to expect for this year, and some of the recommendations that are being considered on helping balance the budget for this year. I'm also gonna, as I mentioned before, we talked a little bit about some of the top issues facing the state. I'll kind of expand on that a little bit, and then I'll transition into what some of the priorities are for our local associations, including NACO and MML, and then what are the priorities for the city of Frostburg? What are we working for? What are we trying to gain this coming year? And I will be able to provide some updates on those since our last report out, and certainly take questions afterwards. But let me first start off on our fiscal realities, if you will. So about a month ago, the Department of Legislative Services, they presented a very comprehensive analysis on the state's budget outlook, not only for this FY27 budget year coming up that starts on July 1st, but also showing the Spending Affordability Committee what are the future out years looking like. As I say here in our presentation, Maryland's budget woes look grim, especially in the out years. The latest projections as of the report shows that the state has a budget gap of $1.5 billion in the upcoming fiscal year. And the state's structural deficit is projected to double by $3.2 billion in FY28, which would be a year from now. The numbers also worsen as we go further out. So in FY29, which would be calendar year 2028, the deficit grows to $3.5 billion, and as the further we go out, we're going to see that deficit hit potentially $5 billion. So we are in a very precarious and a very hardship fiscal situation for the state. There are a lot of major contributors as to the budget shortfalls, and the Department of Legislative Services did a great job kind of illustrating where some of those shortfalls attributed to where we stand in Maryland. But there's also some philosophical reasons as to why we are in the situation we are. And you can hear some of that conjecture on both sides, and I'll touch on that if we have a few minutes. But some of the major contributors of our shortfalls really come to some of our deficiencies, leaving the state with literally a zero-sum cash balance this year. We're also seeing the impacts to the federally enacted legislation, the Big and Beautiful Bill Act. We're also seeing issues in the rise of Medicaid costs, and certainly one of the bigger elephants in the room has been the ongoing controversial, if you will, investment in public education called the Maryland Blueprint. That's a $40 billion investment over 10 years. Those are some of the attributors to where we stand. And the next snapshot from the report, I think, really kind of synthesizes where we are in terms of our fiscal situation, in terms of how things in our general funds got worse post-session. And as you can see on the top, our revenues are lower. The impacts from the federal Big and Beautiful Bill Act substantially shows a major hit to our GF funds. As I said a moment ago, we did not, as a state, forecast or we did not, put in place some safeguards for the fund balance that was due at the end of the fiscal 26, which we're currently in. We didn't have that in place, and because of that, you're seeing substantial amounts of loss in our GF coffers. You're also seeing on the second, bulk of the breakdown, that's where you're seeing our spending is actually higher than our revenues. And our spending, as said before, rising Medicaid costs are ballooning. The issue related to, as I said a moment ago, the funding for education is also taking substantial money and drain from our GF funds. And then you can kind of just see the other numbers on where our state is having to shell out money out of our general funds. And we're at this point almost sort of like bleeding cash, because the next graph from the report really, I think, visually and colorfully illustrates where we stand. Obviously, you can see on the left-hand side or right-hand side, depending on perspective, the green block there showing our revenue growth, and that's our projected general funds spending growth for fiscal 2028. You can see where we're at on the green, but then when you look at the multicolored box, you can see that column just is twice the size of our revenue growth, and that's our spending. So it might be a little hard to see in the graph itself, but this spending is beyond other operating necessities. It's our spending for our behavioral health, personnel costs, and the two blocks related to the blue and purple, that is all dedicated to the blueprint, the public education investment. The cost in blue for the blueprint is part by statute, and part of the other issue in the purple is what is called the fund swap. And part of that is because up to this fiscal year, portion of the money that was helping sustain and finance the blueprint was coming from funds out of the casino revenues. That was dedicated by statute that there was going to be money set aside to help support this. Well, in moving into the out years, that's going to change, so it's going to require more burden on our general funds to compensate for those dollars. So it's almost, as you can see, well over double the amount of our spending growth is just dedicated to public education. So when we go into where the outlook is for FY27, the committee report also continued to say and acknowledge that this past year, lawmakers in Annapolis passed $1.4 billion in new taxes and fees. But the problem that we're facing is that due to the deficits that we've incurred this past year, even though we have seen a projection of new revenue of that $1.4 billion, it really has been offset because of the amount of other problems that we're facing. So the amount of effort that the General Assembly put forward in new increases in fees and taxes really are not impacting our overall deficit. It almost like was essentially a wash. And I think this is where you're kind of getting into the conjecture on perspective. You know, how did we get here? Again, you can see the list of, you know, costs in terms of spending mandates that we have. There is also an argument, and I'm sure there has to be some attribute to this as well, is the fact that there's been a shift in DC, and because of the shift in DC in terms of what they're funding or not funding, the impacts to DOGE, all of those conflated issues have partially, or depending upon your perspective, have either been a substantial contributor or a portion of the contributor to our situation. I'll say that I'm kind of quoting the governor this past year, one of his bills. You know, he made a very great point of sort of describing the state of Maryland in saying that Maryland has been recognized as a state for meds, feds, and eds. And it was a perfect summary of who we are. We invest a lot of money into our hospitals, our institutions for education, and we have had a very strong number of federal employees in Maryland. And when those three silos start to see a substantial reduction in state funds, that is attributing to our loss of revenue coming into the state. So there has to be an acknowledgement this year at some point, potentially by the General Assembly, to say, if we are going to be seeing the next 3 years where there can be more cuts in federal revenue that would typically come to Maryland, we have to start looking at investments into our private sector. And that's something that the governor was saying very openly, continues to say, which is we need to make sure that we are focusing in on private sector, and that private sector area should include both quantum, biotech, and technology. So I'm very curious to see, kind of looking on the landscape in Annapolis, whether or not some of those issues related to the governor's commitment to want to see more private sector investment. I'm going to be very curious to see if some of those bills that he's looking forward to present are in that realm of incentivizing more businesses to come to Maryland, and whether or not the General Assembly is going to consider that. Because as I said a moment ago, if we continue down the way we have been, where we're not putting revenues or support into private industry, then we're going to be potentially in the same spot where we are time and time again over the next few years. Our out years are certainly showing more and more of a structural deficit, and these tax and fee increases are not really impacting those structural numbers. So there has to be a discussion, hopefully this year, where it's looking at all considerations, whether it's incentives by the General Assembly or by the administration for support for the private sector, or looking at sort of tightening the budgets of our fiscal mandates. And so there's going to be additional cuts in the Maryland state budget. But I think the concern of trying to pass more fees and taxes this year is going to be very difficult for the General Assembly, given the fact we just saw this $1.4 billion tax and fee increase this year, and it also falling on an election cycle. I'm not quite sure if the legislature, the governor, and taxpayers have the stomach for more taxes and fees. So we'll see how they balance this budget next year. One of the major components in the fiscal report that was presented to the Spending Affordability Committee by DLS was there could be an option of rating the state's rainy day fund for about I think we have $2.3 billion in the rainy day fund now, but essentially taking a portion of that money and using that to offset our fiscal woes. The problem with that is the Department of Legislative Services cautioned the committee on this option, because if in fact we were to take money out of the rainy day fund, it's not only just a quick fix, but it could impact our bond ratings and has no real way to help mitigate our out years in terms of our fiscal deficiencies. So essentially, it's a small little, Band-Aid on a gaping hole that's leaking from a dam. So again, these are really going to be a lot of hard decisions that the General Assembly, along with the governor, are facing right now. And right now, it's very difficult to say what they're going to be moving towards in terms of what options. The one thing that, I'm kind of managing the expectations for everybody, including the city of Frostburg and certainly the city of Cumberland, that at some point in time where if they are going to look to other alternatives besides raiding the rainy day fund, some of the costs that have been traditionally incurred by the state, they may be offset by giving it over to the locals to inherit. And we're starting to see some of those cost shifts even last year, this past year I should say, where we saw cost shifts going onto the shoulders of the counties to absorb. And so we may see, as a way to help mitigate our fiscal woes, the state may be looking for the county and local government to do more, which means you all, including the county, Allegheny County and the others, will have more of a difficult decision fiscally to figure out then how do we compensate for this new additional burden that has been now given to us by the state. So to say that the budget will be consuming us, it will be, and I would imagine we are going to be working very closely with both MACo and MML for the 90 days, and what will be the final decisions on who's going to be holding the majority of the fiscal responsibilities and the budget woes. We'll have to see how that plays out in the 90 days. I will say on a capital budget, we are seeing that the Spending Affordability Committee authorized and approved $1.75 billion in GO bond authorizations. That's the statutory limit on what can be authorized. Essentially, of that $1.75 billion, almost majority of the fiscal commitments for capital projects have been earmarked. All of but $84 million in commitments have been met, which means that there are still multiple requests out there that are basically going to be vying to find ways of getting some funds for their project in FY27. So while there are some projects that are covered or have received pre-authorizations, everything I think may be up for grabs once again, so everyone's going to be kind of fighting for crumbs. We're hoping for Frostburg, our requests for the capital needs, along with the support that we're providing to Allegheny County. Hopefully those requests from a operating and a capital will be met, but I'm also meeting the expectations that we may not get everything, but we're hoping to get a majority of what we're asking for. And the next slide kind of shows the capital commitments over the next year and where those commitments lie. It's a little difficult, even on my screen, to kind of show the graph of where each one of these catalog areas are in terms of what is being invested by the state. But at the very, very bottom, it's highlighted in yellow, you can see where it says legislative bond initiatives and the funding allowance of just about $62 million for FY25 and FY26. So I'm kind of expecting potentially, the same amount. It all really will depend on what will be budgeted this year. So we don't have necessarily a very robust ask this year on capital, but it's still important. And certainly I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But before I transition into priorities for the state and for MML, does anyone have any questions on our fiscal outlook for the state for this coming year and out years?
I'm afraid to ask any questions.
So, Richard, I do have one. So most of the deficit that you described from the blueprint and those types of things, those are all structural deficits, right? So even tapping into the rainy day fund, it may help this year, but those bills are going to be there next year, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
When it comes to, as I said, the investment for public education, the blueprint, that is a 10-year, $40 billion investment. And I'm losing track on what year we're currently in. I want to say this is year 4 or maybe year 5. So we still have a long ways to go. And if you remember, the blueprint is not just a state investment. There's also a portion of that $40 billion investment that is on the hook by the counties and local governments. So it's not just the state flipping that bill. There's a portion of you all, the counties, also being responsible for that dollar amount. But yes, that is a long-term investment. I feel like I've become Groundhog Day with our bad news when it comes to the budget. I wish I could say I had happier illustrations of graphs and updates, but right now, unfortunately, we're not. But kind of going into the next phase of the presentation, I mentioned a moment ago about state priorities and where we're looking at some of the priorities of our local government associations. A moment ago, I mentioned obviously budget's going to be top of mind. We're going to see issues resurrect itself again in the areas of environment. Forever chemicals has certainly become a forever topic in Annapolis. I think that's going to be another issue that we're going to be facing. The last couple of months, I can say, City of Frostburg and City of Cumberland have been in some legislative work groups related to sewage sludge application. It was a bill that we worked on with some of the Senate and House members last year. It's all somewhat revolving around PFAS and chemicals. I would imagine that's going to be a topic that we're going to be bringing up in a bill or potential bills, plural, that will take some time. So that part of the priorities or things that we're going to be watching or monitoring closely from an environmental standpoint will be on that list. As I said before, housing certainly becomes a critical priority for the governor and for members of the General Assembly. So housing will be another topic, but then we're also going to be seeing a long list of issues under the umbrella of the energy areas. That includes everything from data centers, energy on the grid, how is Maryland generating and transmitting energy here in Maryland. The wind farms will certainly still be a contentious issue, particularly with the feds and the court's decisions recently. So we're going to have those in place. Solar is also still going to be a topic of contention, particularly where we're seeing more of these solar farms populating in rural areas. I'm sure there's going to be more discussions about that. There's going to be also topics about nuclear, small module reactors. There's going to be discussion on that. And there's also going to be probably some conversations around utility companies wanting to generate energy here in Maryland, so it's done here locally. That all sounds good, but utilities are always looking out for their stakeholders. So while needing new generation for energy is a necessity for Maryland, is the utilities the best stakeholders to actually provide that? Typically, utilities are looking for, again, their stakeholders and profits, and it always seems to be on the shoulders of ratepayers. And as we can see, currently our energy rates are skyrocketing. So I'd imagine energy topics in general are going to be a huge time bleed from our discussions in Annapolis. But for our local and municipal associations, I was a little surprised when I saw the information come through earlier this fall on where MML and NATO are kind of prioritizing their needs for next year. I've not seen any tangible bills. Much like last year, we actually saw MML provide us some details and some actual bill language. I have not seen that yet. That's to say, though, I'm sure once the session begins, we'll see a handful of bills start to populate in our inbox and our bill report outs. But essentially for MACO, their legislative priorities are going to be focusing on very much what they've had the last few years, which is restoring highway user funds, housing tools for counties, school construction, and county budget security. Again, these are all annual topics that MACO has been covering, but I've not seen any legislation that they are pushing forward and seeking pre-files or seeking support by sponsors. And one of the great things, though, about MACO and MML is that during session, we do meet on a recurring basis every week. So we're either covering bills that are being monitored by the associations, or there's updates on bills that they are, that they are currently introducing in the House and Senate. So my hope is by the first of the year, we'll have more clarity from both groups as to what they are going to be introducing, or if they have sponsors lined up to help support their initiatives. We'll have some more details on that. Same thing with MML. They're focusing on one central priority this year, and that focus is, as they call it, modernizing municipal revenue structures. Very expansive words, and I would imagine that anything or everything is going to be potentially on the table for MML to consider from legislators. There is no updates yet. I've reached out a few times to MML staff to see if they have anything in mind at the moment, but nothing right now in terms of specifics. So once again, I would imagine once we get through the special session, we have new leadership in place, we get through the holidays, more than likely at the beginning of the year, I will be able to provide some more updates to all of you on where MACO and MML are leading this year and what their tangible legislative focus is going to be. So we'll have more to talk about in the next few weeks. But for the city of Frostburg, I really want to give you all an update on where our priorities land. And we have done a very aggressive campaign over the summer, and we talked about it on the last presentation. And I shared this information with all of you before. We have 4 major initiatives, capital initiatives, related to Frostburg water and sustainability projects that we are going to be focusing on. The collective of those 4 projects are going to be costing well over, $500,000, if not more. I think our numbers are around over $550,000 to maybe even $600,000. But when you think of the aggregate of 4 projects and only coming into requests of under $1 million or even around $500,000, that's really almost somewhat miraculous, and it's also really fiscal on our part in terms of prudency. So the reactions that we have gotten from our meetings in Annapolis and understanding the projects when we go into further detail with the folks in Annapolis, they understand the necessity and the importance of why these projects are so beneficial and why they're so consequential and why it's necessary. So I'm not going to run through these projects because for the purposes of time, they are part of the presentation, and also we have discussed these in the past, but they are all listed here. The first one being the request for support for the Savage Well rehab. The second request is the holding water tank, that leak repair that needs to be done. The third one is a little, I guess, grayer in areas, because I know that the city of Frostburg is taking their own initiatives and support and funding on the actual hydrogeologic assessment. I know that's sort of in place right now, and I'm very curious to see how that is going forward. And the last but not least is the VFDs, the variable frequency drive, the installations for primary pump station. these are the four that we're going to be focusing in on. As I said in my prior briefings, we had great discussions with MDE and the Secretary during the Summer NACO conference. We've had multiple meetings in Annapolis with Governor's Legislative Office, the Secretary, and the new Secretary of Department of Budget and Management. We also spoke with their Chief of Staff and the Deputy Secretary of DBM. We've presented this information to the county. They're fully aware of it. In fact, they were, in the meeting with us at NACO. We shared this with their lobbyists, but we've also provided this information to our legislative delegation, and most importantly, we've had conversations with the leadership of both the House and Senate capital budget subcommittees. So they are fully aware of our asks and what our needs are. And most recently, right before Thanksgiving, we had a follow-up meeting with MDE to provide them some updates on where things stand with the hydrogeologic assessment. And we were also getting some additional information from them on how we can best set ourselves up for capital requests going through their annual capital budget request process. I thought that was a very productive meeting, and I believe, I'm due to hear back from Hayden, who's probably in the meeting with us today, to kind of get some feedback and some updates on the progress there. I believe the window for those applications are open, and I'm sure we'll probably be having that all completed before the closure of that time frame. So those are our asks. One of the quick points, we did share this information with the governor's intergovernmental affairs director a few months ago as well. So we have done, like I said before, I used the term aggressive efforts in Annapolis. We have put all this in front of the state and the folks that are managing and controlling decisions related to our budgets for this coming year. We have presented all this to them in very due course fashion. When you kind of look at the timeline on when these requests have to go before and to be considered, we started this progress and process even before Labor Day. And we had discussions all the way up through parts of September and early October. And as I said a moment ago, we followed up after this point with the state, with MDE. So we have really covered our bases on making sure that the right lawmakers are fully aware of the projects, the understanding of why this money is needed, what the return on the investment means not only for the state, but primarily for the area of surrounding Frostburg, but also to the folks that reside inside the city proper. So I'm very anxious to see what will become of the governor's budgets. As you know, the budgets are released the week after we come back to session. This year's General Assembly will not be reconvening until January the 14th, which is later than usual. So the week following is when we'll see both the operating and the capital budget requests and see where we fall and how we fare. I would also say, and I didn't put this in the presentation here, but we've also been very supportive of Allegheny County and their priorities, their budget requests. As you know, this is the final year under the current state law in terms of what is being funded operationally for the George Edwards Fund. This is the last $10 million amount that has been mandated by the state. Working with the county and their lobbyists, both the city of Frostburg and the city of Cumberland and others have provided supplemental written letters to the governor supporting the ask of Allegheny County, which is to ensure that there's at least $10 million be dedicated to continuing the sustainability of the George Edwards Fund for the next year. City of Cumberland had a great site visit with the House Appropriations Committee in October. They were able to see a great presentation by Matt Miller and by the director overseeing the George Edwards Fund. And then they were actually able to see and walk Baltimore Street and see some of the projects that were benefited by that money. The reaction we saw and heard from committee members, they can actually see the actual investment and what it's being brought back to, not just Cumberland, but for the entirety of the western region. So I feel pretty confident that even with our fiscal, situation, that there's going to be something, hopefully, for the George Edwards Fund. In addition to that, I think the county is also hoping for some additional funds to sort of backfill the lack of federal FEMA money that we were hoping for to get some relief from the floods that took place in May. I think there's sort of a dual ask, hoping to fund the George Edwards and hopefully seeking some funds from the state through potentially the rainy day fund or other mechanisms to help compensate for the loss that you all, and along with Westernport and other areas, incurred. That is still right now in flux. We don't know what's going to be dedicated or what's committed to, but certainly Frostburg, Cumberland, some of the nonprofits around the area that were impacted all have uniformly come forward to help support the county's efforts in aiding you all in that relief. So we will see, sort of a stay tuned. If we can get any information prior to the end of the year related to what's in the budget or potentially what could be in the capital budget, obviously I'll be sharing it with all of you right away. That concludes my presentation. I'm going to stop my screen for a second and just open it up to any questions for the group. I hope I didn't bore you.
No.
Not at all.
No.
I hope I gave everyone a wait. I know there's a lot there.
Yeah, that's a lot to absorb.
Do you have any good news?
My wife's in Chicago, and I'm on dad duties for the rest of the week. That makes some good news. So we're going to be eating a lot of pizza for the next couple of days. I wish I could say there was some good news going into to next year for the 90-day session. It's really tough to find that. I'm though encouraged about the new leadership in the House and where the House's direction in terms of selection, where they're going. I think that will be a huge benefit to all of us. In fact, we have great relationships with Pena Melnick. I think will be a benefit for us. But the rest we'll have to just kind of see how it plays out. I wish I had my crystal ball that predicted the future, but it's been flickering the last few years. So I think I need an upgrade.
So what was the new speaker that's going to be coming in this set? What was her position before? Or I guess what is she currently? What's her position now?
So Delegate Pena Melnick, she is currently the chairwoman of the House Health and Government Operations Committee, HGO.
Okay.
Like I said, she has a hybrid, or I should say a dual legislative district, so she oversees portions of Prince George's County and parts of Anne Arundel County.
Okay.
Any other questions for me? I appreciate everyone's ability to accommodate for me, especially being Mr. Mom this evening. Actually had your favorite New York City cookies in hand, but looks like the kids are going to be eating them this week, so I apologize. But next time I see everybody at Pace, I'll make sure to have something good for everybody. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you all at Pace. I think we'll have a lot to talk about. Pace is falling right around the same time when the budget is released, so more than likely we'll see Molly, we'll see Dylan, maybe hopefully see the governor at the breakfast this year. We can hopefully say profusely thank you for all the capital money that's in there and seek any other additional needs for the 90 days and for the remainder of that year. So looking forward to hopefully you all coming down. And if there's opportunity where you are going to be in town and you want to do lunch or you have specific legislators you want to try to meet prior to PACE, just feel free to reach out to me or coordinate with Patrick and Mayor Todd, and I'll make sure we can make that happen.
All right. Thank you for your time, Rich. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
everything.
well,
Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your night.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
All right.
Let's get that off.
Just getting the agenda pulled up. It's dark outside now. All right, so we'll move on then to item 4 on the agenda. We'll actually get into the meeting topics. We'll call on 4A, which is a potential adjustment to the city code. Mr. Klink.
Yes, I have proposed a text amendment to the Frostburg zoning ordinance. It deals with artisan small-scale manufacturing, which is an existing, it does have its own existing section in the zoning ordinance that deals with it. Currently, this use is a special exception use only in the commercial districts. And what we are proposing is to make this a primary permitted use in the commercial districts, and then also add this as a special exception use in residential districts. So what that would mean is if somebody came in and they were trying to do one of the items that would be considered something that is artisan or small-scale manufacturing, if they were in a commercial district, it would still have to meet this entire section 8.2 of the zoning ordinance. It would still have to meet all of these before they would be allowed to do that. It would just essentially allow us as staff to assess that it meets all of these requirements. And then we could, allow that use in a commercial district. If it was in a residential district, currently it is not something that is permitted even as a special exception. This would allow it to be permitted that way. However, it would still need to meet all of these, but it would also have to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals to be approved in a residential district. Originally, we had proposed just to add it as a permitted use in the commercial districts. It went through the Planning Commission, and I believe it was Ray Race on the Planning Commission who said some of these things are probably already occurring as like an extra use in somebody's residence in residential districts. If we add it as a special exception use in those districts, this may give us another level of control or regulation on these activities.
There's definitely baking going on in residential areas, a baking center for sale, so.
Yeah, and it's very small scale. It's like you can't have like loading docks. You can only have very minimal deliveries. You can't have like no noise audible at the property line, no
Signage.
odors or fumes. Yeah, it's like just like when people are doing things at a very small scale for small either regional distribution or sales, nothing large scale, no assembly line work or anything like that.
Got it.
Or any questions anybody have?
I mean, do you have any examples of those things that were going on right
Well,
now?
what's kind of spurred this was we had somebody come through recently they wanted to do mushroom growing in a basement of an existing apartment building, and that would fall under the indoor agriculture. However, because of it only being a special exception use, they had to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals. They did do that here recently. It did get approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. But had this been a permitted use, we would have been able to assess all of these things and just say, yes, it does fit that, and they could have proceeded.
And that was in a commercial zone where that was?
It was the C1 district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the key things about that is that it doesn't just allow people to go and do this without coming to get a permit, so it still
Yeah.
is reviewed. It's not just allowing these things to happen without any sort of contact with us.
But at least you have like a checklist that, that you can start with.
Yeah, it has to meet all of the criteria of this one section of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah. Seems like it's pretty well guarded, so, preserving the residential nature of that zone.
Yeah.
So this will be the first reading of this ordinance next week.
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else on that? All right, moving on then to item 4B. This is another potential code adjustment related to smoke alarms. We've talked about this before.
All right, bear with me, I just come into the middle of this. So there's been a proposed change to clean up the language and some other couple items in there. Patrick's gonna chime in here and there. He scrolls back up where he was. We're gonna add C to the text where it says in each room used for sleeping purposes. The proposal is to add that. 2, all smoke detectors within a rental unit must be interconnected so that all detectors within the unit sound if any of them are activated. So they have a new wireless radio frequency went out, style, where you can order them offline and they don't have to be hardwired, but they'll all sound at the same time. So it's a cost-effective thing for some folks. Joining rental units. This is the one Patrick and I's been kind of going back and forth over. Joining rental units in a rental property not furnished with approved fire and smoke separation assemblies shall be required to interconnect smoke detectors between units. We cannot verify that there's a proper fire separation in older structures. So the 3 options we're presenting, option 1, all units in a multi-unit rental property shall be required to interconnect smoke detectors between units so that all detectors within units sound upon activation. Option 2 is one we're leaning to. We'll speak to you about this evening. Adjoining rental units in a rental property that has been converted from a single-family home to a multi-unit rental shall be required to interconnect smoke detectors between units so that all detectors within units sound upon activation. So any single-family residential house that somebody stuck walls in and made 8 rooms out of is one of our recommendations. The other one is just delete the requirement since we cannot verify a firewall.
So one of the big things with this is in looking at this, when it comes to inspecting this, there's really no way to guarantee that there's an official firewall. And part of that is you can't, without opening up walls and things like that, for as far as inspection goes, we can't do that. So currently, right now, we can't inspect up to that level. So deleting it honestly wouldn't change what the current result is. However, one of the big things is if for the bigger apartment complexes, if we make every building that has multiple units have the smoke alarm sound in other apartments, there's a higher chance, especially if there's 15 units or something like that, of somebody getting frustrated of smoke alarms going off and disconnecting something.
Right.
We don't want to promote that either. So the reason we looked at that option 2 and are suggesting that is things that were converted, interior walls from single-family homes don't need firewall, or fire suppression in any real way, especially the older houses. So if any of them would be an issue, it's most likely to be those. And this creates a common practice across all rental units if we were to do that. So for that specific one, that's the reason we're suggesting that.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, that we certainly, we don't want to lessen the requirements to the degree that that's possible, but we recognize that if it's something that's too stringent, A, it's going to be a burden on the landlords, a further burden on the landlords, and B, there's a chance that people are just going to take them down, in which case they're no use at all.
And the big part of changing the language is to make sure that we can truly inspect it to that level and actually verify. And those are things we'd be able to verify.
So the part below where it says physical interconnection of smoke alarms shall not be required where listed wireless, etc. That so if we choose option 2, that will appear below option
1 or 2,
Yes.
that would be tagged on. Like
And
that's
that would be
either way.
just
That no matter the
radio
option.
frequency ones where it's not hardwired. But the use of internet-based interconnection is prohibited. You can't, they have to be radio frequency, not internet-based.
Okay.
Any other questions on it? Any existing battery-operated smoke alarm within a rental unit that is 10 years old from the date of manufacture indicated on the label shall be replaced with a sealed smoke detector with long life batteries. It's never acceptable to remove required hardwired AC smoke alarms and replace any type of battery. That's a fire marshal. After 2018, that was a law from the fire marshal's office in the state of Maryland. So.
And that came into effect after we adopted the 2012
Yeah.
IPMC, so it's not in there. We're just adding that.
Yep. person or persons identified as to tampering, removing, vandalizing life safety device or equipment shall be subject to a municipal citation of $500. That's if they're found removing them, disabling a system. Number 6 is just adding hardwired AC verbiage in there. And then number 7 is a big one. It used to say, currently it says, an operable smoke detector shall be repaired or replaced within 3 days. They're proposing 24 hours if it's not working properly.
And I believe the reason that may have been 3 days was for if it's inspected on a Friday, 3 days would be Monday, we can come back and inspect it. But really nobody should have a smoke detector for more than a day, or they shouldn't really even be for a day. Even if Jay doesn't get around to going back to inspect it, the expectation is 24 hours.
That's fine. If we go back to number 5 for a second, question on number 5. Person or persons identified as tampering, removing, whatever shall be subject to a fine. Would that fine be assessed on the tenant or on the landlord?
So it could technically be assessed on either.
Okay.
We can come up with a standard practice. We could assess it to the landlord because the property wouldn't have it, and it's the landlord's responsibility to make sure it does. And then the landlord could then kind of pass it down to the individual. But if we know the individual is the one removing it, we could technically fine them directly.
Yeah,
The problem is you're gonna go and fine the landlord. The landlord will never ever be able to collect that. You know, and it is 99.9% of the time the tenant. I mean, I could go put a smoke detector in my apartment today, and I'd go back tomorrow, and it could be removed. And as a landlord, you can't be in that apartment every time you turn around.
No, I agree, and then that's why when we talked about it with Jay, the option was that we could find the individual directly. That's why it says any persons.
Okay.
So technically, it could be somebody that didn't live there that's going through ripping out smoke detectors in hallways of other buildings could technically be fined as well.
Okay.
Is it common to use the slash for AC? Isn't it just usually just AC with that?
Yes, I'm actually not sure whether that's there yet. These are nowhere. So Michael will actually write the ordinance. These are just the direction we're planning on going.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I was late. Can we go back up a little bit?
Yeah.
Right to option 3.
Mm-hmm.
So we're deleting what's there now.
Well, that's the 3 options we.
Well, and then putting in that right below it.
So
Oh,
option 1, 2, those are the 3 options. This concept of how you interconnect would be applied to option 1 or 2. So no matter what, this is a part of it.
Gotcha.
The options are everybody does interconnected, just converted units to interconnected, or we get rid of it altogether. But if we keep it, that bottom section is a part of it.
I just had the fire marshal over the other day for something, and the one that was there, now I know they all have different opinions. Obviously, I've had 3 different ones in the same building, and all 3 of them gave me different opinions on something, but from what I gathered, as long as there was a as long as there was a 10-year battery one in the bedrooms, they were okay with that.
Yeah, current smoke alarm standard is that.
Okay.
Number 3 up there is what's currently in the city's code that we've never enforced, is what I'm being told.
Okay.
So we're either looking at option 1, 2, or 3. 3 is to delete number 3 altogether.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or number 2 is making anything converted from single family home to multiple, like a single family rancher that went into.
Yeah.
Unit.
If they're doing.
Yeah.
So the background of this, and maybe that'll help a little bit, is our code is slightly stricter than IPMC code that we adopted, in that we have written in there that all smoke detectors should be interconnected within a unit. IPMC gives an exception for that if the building's older and it hasn't been renovated. Ours takes that exception away.
I think we've talked about that before. I think that was probably a mistake on our part when we did it. I think our intention was that if you're going in and remodeling the building, yes, you have to do it. But if it's an existing building that it hasn't had any major renovations being done, that wasn't our intention to do that back then.
The concern would be is at the time, and would make sense with what you're saying, is I think the only way you could interconnect them was from like physical wires.
Right.
So you would have had to open up a wall to do that. Now, because of the radio frequency concept, you can do it with the battery operated ones that go in, like the ones that you're adding. They can still be interconnected. So the suggestion, if you look at number 2, would be is that the smoke detectors do need to be interconnected within a unit, but they can be with the battery operated ones for the additional smoke detectors. We looked up the cost of things, and I think, John, you said you found like a 4-pack or something?
Like
or-
$200 for a 4-pack, but
Yeah.
that was just a random, like,
Yeah.
typing it in
Yeah.
on Amazon.
Something to consider too is, and so everybody knows I own rental properties. Now, I'm pretty sure all of mine have smoke detectors in the bedrooms because Jay was just in a bunch of them the other day. But a lot of these units are so small. I mean, a lot of 1-bedroom units in town. And like, I know one of my units over here has a smoke detector right outside in the hallway, right outside the bed. Actually, living room, bedroom, bathroom. The smoke detector is like right where all 3 of them connect, and then there's another one in the bedroom that's 6 feet away. I mean, at some point, you gotta think it's a little overkill for some of these people, and you know, somebody. You know, some of these landlords own a lot of properties, you know, and and yes, for somebody who only has 1 or 2, spend $200 isn't saying a lot, but, you know, there's landlords out there that have hundreds of units. I mean, what are you talking then? You're talking thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. You know, when, you know, a battery operated one is, you know, you go down to Lowe's and you can buy the battery operated ones for $20, you know, and, you know, they're all gonna, like I said, you know, a 400 square foot unit, how many smoke detectors do you really need in it? I'd use this, the house that the city bought over on North Water Street. I remodeled 30 years ago. There were 9 smoke detectors in that house. It was 2 bedrooms. And that was, Mark Monet was the inspector for us back then, and he made me I had a smoke detector in every single room, 1 in the hallway, 1 in the basement, 1 in the attic. It's like this, you know, Mark, this house is 600 square feet. You know, I mean, this is a little overkill. But.
So the law for the bedrooms and things like that is actually Maryland's requirement. It's only needed after you go to remodel. So there's a lot of houses that are have the exception to that right now. But the way it says is that there's supposed to be an AC powered smoke detector on every floor, which was put into place a while ago, and then 1 in every sleeping area, which right now, if you're not remodeling, can be battery operated. But then it also says they should all be interconnected if you remodel as well. So eventually they would all have to get to that. Right now, there does have to be 1 in every bedroom as of 2018. I think was the cutoff for that. So the locations would be correct. Eventually, if it gets remodeled, they should all also be AC hardwired. But again, that's, you know, if those properties ever get that far.
So Jay's just looking to clean up the verbiage, or add or delete or clean it up. So that's why there's 3 options.
Well, and
We didn't.
yeah, and technically with number 2, like we could technically take out the interconnectivity concept as well within a single unit. But in general, it's a good practice for things to be interconnected. That's the goal that the state wants us to get to eventually, anyways, with everything. So.
Not to keep this conversation going as well, but the 3-day thing, you might also want to keep that because a lot of landlords have a 24-hour advance notice policy. So, like, I also have rental units. I can't get into them within, like, if you come and inspect it on, let's say it's Thursday, and you give me 24 hours to fix it on a Friday, I probably can't get in there until Saturday because I have to give my tenants 24 hours heads up for preventative maintenance.
Even though you had access that day because of the inspection. Okay, I'll make note of that.
And like holidays too, if we inspect it on Christmas, this is a one-off thing.
Yeah.
But if you inspect it on the day before Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve, and Lowe's is closed on Thanksgiving and Christmas, you're not getting in to do it within 24 hours. So
I don't think we would inspect on Christmas Eve, but I get what you're
just
saying.
just for the sake of
Yeah,
you
for
know,
argument,
yeah.
And I think we all understand that realistically, Jay's probably not going back out to inspect it the next day, but
Yeah.
it's,
It could become an argument down the road, is my thought.
yeah. And I would hope that all landlords would want to get the stuff fixed within a,
Yeah, I mean, I would think
as
if it's
soon as possible.
Something that's identified as life
Yeah.
safety would take priority. All right, so which one do you go? 1, 2, or 3?
Two, I think two.
Yeah, our suggestion was 2 because it makes the most sense if we want to keep the interconnected concept. And knowing that firewalls, we can't truly inspect it to a level where we can say that, yes, these apartments are completely separated with firewalls.
But is that saying existing ones now? Like,
Okay.
somebody's got a duplex right now that doesn't have interconnected units. Are we saying they have to go put them in?
Well, no, so a duplex would have been built to be a multi-unit.
Yeah, it's just saying converted from a single-family home to
But
a
yes, it
multi.
would
So if
be-
you already have a duplex, it's fine.
But it would count for
That's my understanding.
the current houses that were converted, because this
I
concept.
I think we need to
forward
clean it,
going-
I think we need to clean it up a little bit and say, going forward, anything, and then something in there that says, you know, if somebody is going in and remodeling a whole place, yes, they have to do.
Oh, yeah, if they have to remodel it, then technically, based on the state, they'd have to do
Yeah.
all hardwire, all interconnected. But you're suggesting that for current single-family homes that were converted into multi-units, that they'd be grandfathered in, and it'd be everything moving forward?
That would be my thought, because there are a lot of single-family homes out there that are multi-unit now. I mean, there's,
Well, and if we were following the code that's currently in place, they would all already need to be interconnected within the unit, not necessarily, well, based on that, if they didn't have a firewall, they'd have to be as well, but the problem is we can't inspect the firewall concept, so.
So option 2 is less stringent than the code that currently exists.
The code that currently exists would say anything without a firewall needs to have interconnection between units. So chances are that some of the houses you're talking about don't have the firewall between the units, but the issue is we can't truly verify that they do or don't.
Yeah, because
And
that
so
gets
it-
pretty technical.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand.
And so we wouldn't want to say that, well, we don't have enough proof, you need to put it up when people have gone out of the way to have it. So this would just kind of lump those into the same category. So it would be less stringent in the fact that anything made, that was created as a multi-unit facility that didn't have firewall protection in it technically wouldn't need it. But yeah, so it depends on what direction we want to go. The issue being is we have something in the code that isn't verifiable one way or another, so it needs to be changed to a point that we can verify.
You keep hearing going back to the firewall thing, but there are duplexes out there that were built 100 years ago that don't have a firewall in them. I mean,
And then that's a possibility, yeah.
there's probably thousands of them in the city, or, well, not thousands, hundreds.
I would say nearly every one.
Yes. I mean,
And-
the only thing that would have had a firewall in it was anything probably built in the last 20 years, if I'm guessing.
Which when it comes to some of the higher, like more unit buildings, most of them were built more recently or have some sort of,
I mean, you're talking duplexes there, so no, you're
So it's not, yeah, things that were converted from single family, things that
Right.
were built as, so even like something that was built in 1980
Yeah.
as a duplex, it would not have a firewall
Probably
between
not.
the
Not
units.
necessarily.
Probably not.
I was thinking more of like there's new apartment complexes up on like.
Right, they would, but what we're saying
Yeah.
is there's stuff other than that
Oh,
too that's
absolutely.
also.
I think you're opening up a can of worms with a lot of houses out in the city if you say that everybody that has a duplex, basically what you're saying is anybody that has a duplex has to go in and put interconnection throughout their building, is exactly what you're saying.
So if we did option 1, it would be yes, because anything with multi-units would. For option 2, because that was built as a multi-unit structure, that wouldn't need to. But if somebody took a house and split it down the middle and turned it into a duplex, they would. That's the difference with option 2.
So if they do it now, they would have to do it. Right.
Well, so we were talking about this actually being retroactive based because the code was in place already, but we could do it as of from here on out.
I would much rather see from here on out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then yeah, I think we do need to put something in there that any unit, and this could be any of them, single,
Mhm.
doubles, multiples, any unit that is undergoing a major renovation would be required to put interconnected.
Oh, so yeah, that's a state of Maryland law, and that's
Okay.
in the IPMC.
Okay.
But so just to confirm, right now, we do have it that all rental units have to be interconnected within within each unit. And so it can be done through battery operated radio frequency smoke detectors, but right now that is in there, and that is what was in the code, and the wording's clarified, but the goal is to keep that as well, correct?
All right, so we're going with 2 with the addition that it's anything that's done going forward.
Going to be upgraded, yeah.
Okay.
From this day forward, whatever,
Perfect.
whatever your meeting is.
All right.
And then, I'm trying to, my eyes are not quite there. Okay. We are saying that battery operated ones, whether they're interconnected or not, are okay in the bedroom still, correct? Okay.
So they would have to be interconnected, but they are okay.
No, not interconnected.
Not previous.
Anything from today backwards.
It is
So-
sealed battery
So,
operated.
so we may be talking about 2 things. So for 3, we're talking about interconnection between units, between like apartment A and apartment B. We already had in the code, so number 2, all smoke detectors within a rental unit must be interconnected. That was already in there.
But that was
That was the two
under the
hardwired.
understanding that you only had one on each level
Hardwired.
hardwired.
So that was correct. When they added the ones for the bedrooms, we kept that as a more strict concept. So the clarification we were putting in for that.
You weren't here at that time, Patrick, so you don't know that we kept that.
No, that's right. I'm just saying it made it more strict was the case.
Yeah.
So for this, what we're saying is the clarification we were saying was that it can be done through the battery operated concept. If we want to take that out so that they don't need to be interconnected, we can just go with what the IPMC says, which is you have to have the battery operated ones in the bedroom. And then if you ever renovate, it has to then be interconnected.
I would feel much more comfortable with that. Just, again, and just stipulating, mine all have interconnected ones and an alarm system in the hotel and stuff over there. It's not anything to do with my rental properties, and Jay just inspected any of the little ones I have, so our intention back when 2012 or 13 or whenever this was written, I think, was not to overwhelm people. It was a mistake that was left in there.
So we wanted to, you want to take out number 2 then, because that's what is in there. All smoke must be interconnected, so that's currently what's written in there, right, Patrick?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we put that in as one of the ones that we weren't going to follow IPMC. That was put in there. So for basically what we're going to say is that for the concept of the smoke detectors in the bedrooms and interconnectivity within a unit, we're going to go back to the IPMC language or follow the IPMC language for 2012.
Yeah.
And then the IPMC doesn't have anything about firewalls, but we're going to put in that those converted from now on would have to have smoke detectors that interconnect between units.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, anything else on that? Thank God. All right, who's next? Mr. Klink.
Yes.
Planning Commission, sorry, zoning appeals.
Yeah, so kind of just like last month, only this time for Board of Zoning Appeals. Board member Julia Williams, her term is going to expire on December 15th. She had indicated that she's willing to serve another 3-year term. So we recommend that she be reappointed beginning December 16th up to December 16th, 2028. And if you have any other recommendations or want to go with somebody else, let us know. But
Was there anybody else that even remotely expressed interest in it? Okay. Anything else on that? All right, item 4D, this is commercial structures tax credit.
how do we, because we've gone over this before, only thing that we were waiting on this was just the
Yeah, so,
engineering, correct?
yep. And that is on the screen.
Okay.
So, and then I can explain this one if you want to, Jimmy. So,
Yeah.
we had talked about this last time, Jimmy brought it forth, and the one question came down to the planning and architectural cost. Seemed like it was for the entire project, but the tax credit's only for the specific upgrades. So if you take the request for the upgrades and versus total cost, it's about 18.9% of the total cost. 18.9% of the architecture cost is 15. So instead of the total being 41 or 411,800, if you just use the percentage, the total would be 346,918.33. With that said, I did get an email today from them, and they said that they reviewed it and they think that the total cost for architecture would be 26,000, not necessarily 15. They didn't give any backup documentation for it. They apparently emailed me last week, but they put an apostrophe in the email and that doesn't get to me. So, so they did email me again today for clarification. So, the percentage would be 15,000 for the architectural costs for the items for the taxing. They're suggesting 26. It'd be up to you all which ones you want to approve.
Okay.
And this is over 10 years, is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's the tax credits over 10 years.
I think that's,
Okay.
So I'd have to refigure it then when you get the supporting documentation.
So from what I gather, I think they just estimated it, so I don't know that there is supporting documentation, so my suggestion would be to stick with the percentage like we talked about.
I see.
I don't think it's gonna, well, I agree with you, Patrick, I don't think it's gonna matter, it's not, their taxes aren't gonna be $40,000
Yeah, they're not gonna be
a year
much
now.
anyhow.
I mean, it's, it's,
But so if that's the case, we'll have a resolution for council meeting to approve these figures here.
Okay. All right, so that was, let's see. We're on to item E now, Center Street Development Extension Request.
So I believe you, everybody on council got an email from the individual that's in the Center Street development. They wanted an extension for 8 to 12 months. So we do need to do a resolution to approve that. So if you all are comfortable having him extend that, we'll get a resolution together for next time. The question would be is just, do you want to give them the full 12 months? They said 8 to 12, but didn't really request anything specific. Is there a certain amount of time you'd like to have the extension for?
I'm fine with 12.
12 is fine.
Yeah.
Well, it's been what, 8 months? The original one was 8 months from then till now?
Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
That gets them through the end of next year, yeah? Yeah, that's fine. All right, next is CSO.
Okay, so for 10B and 10C, as a part of these agreements going into the bonding and for the MDE approval process, historically what we would have always done with these grants is go through an approval with the council to pursue the grant and then an approval with the council to go into the grant agreement. What we did when all this came out 2 years ago was we just verbally approved acceptance of the funding package from MDE, which was half loan forgiveness, and then a grant on top of that. So what these will be is just basically coming to you guys next week and saying, do you approve us entering into this grant agreement? So, for 10B and 10C. An OSG grant and a BRF grant. So.
And then is there what resolution is also needed for the bonding as well? Or does
That'll come a little later.
a little later?
All right, so we've done that before, no big deal on that.
Yep.
All right, Commissioner Ritchie, thank you for sticking around to do this.
Yeah.
Next is item 5A. This is a fun one.
Okay,
I'm
I
making
can't
it
see
go
it,
later.
so,
I'm working on it.
oh, you got it, okay. All right, so we got our garbage collection for 2026. Okay, so, let's see, Christmas tree curbside collections. The city will provide curbside collection of clean Christmas trees on Monday, January 5th, 2026, and Monday, January 12th, 2026. Regular garbage collection for the following collection dates, falling on these holidays. New Year's Day, Thursday, January 1st, garbage will be collected. on Friday, January 2nd. Veterans Day, Wednesday, November 11th. Garbage will be collected on Friday, November 13th. Thanksgiving, Thursday, November 26th. Garbage will be collected on Monday, November 30th. And Christmas Eve, Thursday, December 24th. Garbage will be collected Monday, December 28th. Yard waste pickup, second Monday of each month, beginning April 13th through September 14th. Monday, October 5th, and Monday, October 19th. Monday, November 2nd, and Monday, November 16th. Residents are reminded that yard waste must be sent out to the curbside in either biodegradable paper yard waste bags or reusable cans. Bulk cleanup. The annual bulk pickup will be held Tuesday, May 19th, Wednesday, May 20th, and Thursday, May 21st. It's the week prior to Memorial Day. Collections will be on the same day as normal garbage collections. The bulk pickup is provided for only city residents, garbage customers. Commercial or dumpster customers are not eligible. The street department will not pick up appliances, Freon-based refrigerants, tires, batteries, televisions, computer monitors, pickup tubes, paint or other chemicals or hazardous materials. Collections will be subject to weather conditions or unrelated emergencies. All approved requirements apply for each type of waste. Special pickups can be arranged for a prepaid fee. Yeah, what is our prepaid fee?
Right now it's $75.
Are we at 75? Okay. View the current municipal fees. You can get them on our website.
Yeah, they put that in case it changes.
Yeah. If anybody needs any more information, you can contact City Hall.
Very good. All right, something we look forward to all the time.
Yeah.
I look forward to bulk trash week. I love bulk trash week.
Yeah, we love it.
I'll bet you do.
All the recyclers come around.
That's right. All right, next item, discussion item is 5B, Spirit of Frostburg Award.
So we are all set to have the Spirit of Frostburg Award presented at the council meeting to Benito Reyes. Barb Armstrong is putting together a plaque and some other information, but we'll be doing that as a special presentation. So he was very happy to hear that he was selected. His first words, I think, were, "You really don't have to do this. I just like doing the things I do." And I told him that we wanted to make sure.
That's exactly why he got it.
Yes. So we're all set for that.
Very good. All right, item C, end of year employee bonuses.
So, and we'll talk about C and D together a little bit. So, we had talked about this previously. Amy had put together a review of how much money we had saved for having some new employees that were hired a little bit lower than the individuals that were here before them. We had some employees that weren't in positions for a certain amount of time. And we had a net gain that would allow us to do a couple of different options when it came to bonuses. With that, we did also want to look into overtime because I was curious if we were kind of on track for that now that we've switched from all comp time to overtime and things like that. When we first looked at it, we were on track to be well over when it came to overtime. So we looked into it a little bit more. Knowing Elaine and knowing that she would have prepared for things, if we were over, it was probably something that we were doing wrong, was my initial thought. So looked at the overtime policy. The overtime policy is a little confusing when it comes to wording, and I was concerned that we were counting things as overtime that shouldn't have been, and we had this discussion. In talking with, actually reached out to Elizabeth to get some clarification, and that is not the case. So overtime is being done correctly. We also found out that there was some money kind of hidden in the sock drawer when it came to benefits and things like that for individuals that weren't hired yet for police officers. So that really does dwindle down the concern about being well over when it comes to overtime. We also now have Michaela officially on duty, and so some of the shifts that are covered and things like that won't result in overtime because it'll be changing of shifts and things like that. So as far as overtimes go, I think we're back on track and those types of things. So we have plenty of money as far as bonuses and things like that go. So we did talk about doing bonuses at the same rate as last year because there is some uncertainties when it comes to spending and things like that. In talking with the staff, one of the things that they did mention is it would be nice if instead of doing A $300 bonus is doing $300 as the gross, or the net, sorry. So that employees would actually get a check for $300. So it would mean that we were covering the cost of Social Security and Medicare, because those are two things that come out of it. So the difference in the cost to the city between doing it as a net or doing it as a gross is $1,444.56. So we'd originally talked about a $300 bonus, which is the same as last year. Employees would wind up with a check for $277.05. But because we feel like we've worked out some of the overtime stuff, I did want to put in the option of doing it as a net concept where each employee would earn $324.85 and get a check of $300 even. So, any questions or any thoughts on that?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Is that what it was last year? I think that's
about,
yeah.
It was $300 last year. It would have been the gross though. So
Oh,
people-
it was the gross last year.
Yeah.
That was my question. I'm
This
sorry.
is the new thing. So this would
I know
be-
you said that, and I missed. I
Yeah.
overlooked that
This would
part.
be a little bit more, but it's
Got it.
basically $1,500.
Yeah, that's fine.
Then we will get those squared away.
Just check smart.
Very good.
Sweet.
All right. So that's,
And then one of the things with the clarification.
Will they be given at the Christmas party, or
Yes.
is this, okay?
Yeah, that's and then one other thing with the clarification of overtime, because of the way overtime is worded, there are some positions that should really be considered more of a flex position. Some of the people in this room, actually, a good majority of them. Jamie, Emily, Lydia, Trevor, they, because of evening meetings and some things like that, they're not exempt employees, but their schedules do allow for some moving of hours. It's not necessarily always overtime if they don't go over the 40. So we have started talking about clarifying some of that in the personnel manual so that they can, if they decide that they have a meeting in the evening, they want to leave at 3 and come back for the meeting at 5, doesn't mean that meeting at 5 is automatically overtime. They have the ability to make those changes. We also have
Longer lunch break.
Yeah, or skipping out a little early on Friday. So theirs would be more based on the 40-hour work week compared to outside of the regular shift because their shifts are a little flexible. The custodian for Parks and Rec is a similar way. They can move their shift around based off the needs of what they need to do. So,
Got it.
excellent.
okay. All right. Next is the hydrogeologic study.
We should be drilling next week.
Yeah,
Perfect.
That's about it.
so the road in is, okay?
Yeah, we should have it stoned and ready to go by tomorrow.
It's not a muddy mess.
No,
Good.
knock on wood. If it stays this temperature, it should be perfect because it'll be rock hard.
Good.
Yeah,
And they can drill in that.
it'll drill to rock. So
Oh, yeah.
So rock art,
Once you get- once you get-
Yeah, it's true. Once it gets down past the topsoil,
yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
proud of you. All right, keep it going. Tell us about PACE.
Yeah, so kind of the same things Rich talked about. We'll present on the 4 big projects. The next phase of the hydrogeologic study, which is the engineering behind designing the station to plug in there. The VFDs at Piney, which we already have some contribution from Potomac Edison on. So we'll include that in the presentation to kind of make it more appetizing to MDE. And then the geodesic dome at the water treatment plant that's leaking, that'll be a part of it. And then the existing well rehab at Savage. So we have 2 wells at Savage. One of them is online and it's awesome. We do have a second well there for redundancy's sake that has a blown motor. So that's one that we've been talking about for 3 or 4 years. We just kind of keep kicking the can down the road because it hasn't necessarily been a need. It's been more of a want. But if we're going through with this, loan accounting long-term process, we want that second well for redundancy's sake. That'll be the bulk of the presentation. I should have it ready in the next 2 weeks. And then kind of base it around however the hydrogeologic assessment pans out. We can kind of flex it from there. But that'll be the 4 big things we talk about. And we're going to gear it towards obviously needing it for the sake of sustainability and being a provider for an extra 2,000 people every year is what we're banking on. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Last one under item 5. This is the stabilization grant.
So just as an update, the county announced what they gave the funding to after the suggestion that was sent by Mayor and Council. So they did stick with the top 3 that was suggested. So 100,000 will go to Diamond Building, 100,000 to Lucky's, and then 50,000 to the Hawking House. We did have a discussion of whether the Hawking House would actually be able to accept that, when it's not the full amount. If they don't, then it would go to the 4th one that we had on the list, which I believe was the Pritchard Building.
Got it.
So, John's one that chatted with the county about that. Anything to add to that?
No, but you touched on it. The Talking House don't take it, and I did talk to, what's his name, Daniel Bonilla,
Oh, yeah.
about the progress. He's leaving the company, and there's 2 other guys gonna take it over, so I'm gonna give him a little bit of time to turn everything over to them before we follow up with them.
For which one?
The Diamond
Diamond.
project, yeah.
Anything else on that?
No.
Anything else generally before I move on to item 6? Okay. Item 6, closed session. Pursuant to the Annotated Code of Maryland General Provisions, Article Section 3-305B1, which allows for a closed session to, among other things, discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. A closed session, that is permitted under annotated code. A closed session is needed tonight to conduct a 6-month probationary review for the city administrator's position, as well as to discuss additional reviews, retirements, and potential promotions. So, we need a motion for that.
I move we adjourn to closed session.
Second. Duly moved and seconded to adjourn to closed session. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, I would ask Hayden and Amy to stay first. We'll talk about your thing first.
Emily's gonna stay.
And Emily also. Okay, yes, that's fine.
Thank
All
you,
right,
everyone.
so everyone else is
Have a good night.
dismissed.